morning. We're sitting here at the Octave Exchange with the dynamic mayor of Tampa, Mr. Bob Buckhorn. He's getting ready to turn the river green on Saturday, which is going to be an exciting event. But we're doing what we always do on Fridays. We're talking tech, and we're talking Tampa Bay, and a lot of exciting things that are happening in our community. We got the normal people that and some new people around the table. But really, what's driving technology in Tampa Bay, and the guy that's really been instrumental in talking about changing the DNA of Tampa, is the man to my left, a good friend and somebody who I am confident is going to make Tampa Bay, when you talk about rivaling Charlotte and the other cities, we're going to beat them. I mean, that's our commitment. And this mayor, since he's been in office from day one, has been making it clear that that's his #1 priority. And so, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank you for coming. And, you know, this is a very open format. We're going to introduce everybody here, but I wanted to start with you and say thank you for being our mayor, and thank you for coming here. And you can talk a little bit about what's happening in Tampa.
Well, Mark, first of all, you are far too kind. I'm just a dad doing my job and trying to leave the city in better shape than it was given to me. You're absolutely right. I am going to turn the river green tomorrow. It's the mayor's 2nd annual River O' Green Festival. It's the price the community pays for electing an Irishman mayor. But even more importantly, I'm breaking out my green pants with the shamrocks on them. And I expect to see you in a pair of green pants down there too, Mark. I have 3 pairs of green pants that I will happily share with you if you choose to participate. But it's, you know, it's part of the renaissance of downtown Tampa, and it's part of, I think, what we are talking about today, and sort of the attitude and the excitement that is coursing through the veins of this community. You know, when I was elected 2 years ago, I said we were going to change Tampa's economic DNA because our best and brightest kids were leaving this community for places like Charlotte and Raleigh and Austin, Texas, and we weren't attracting those best and brightest kids from elsewhere. And I'll be darned if I'm going to lose my girls to Charlotte. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. And so for me, it was very, very personal. And, you know, I think what we have seen over the last couple of years is a belief that we can be better, that we don't have to settle for second best, that we don't have to settle for any job. I mean, my kids are not going to come home to a call center job, and I don't expect them to, and I don't want them to. And so changing that DNA partially is changing the physical environment. You know, we're all familiar with, you know, the writings of Richard Florida, and we all know that intellectual capital is mobile, and sometimes they make decisions about where to live based on, you know, what a city is like and the diversity of a city and how it celebrates diversity, and the downtown and you know, the 18-hour day environment where you can live, work, and play in the same place, where transit is a part of it, where there is a can-do spirit, where we celebrate entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and where we recognize that, you know, the economic model is very different than what Florida has built over the last 30 years. I mean, we can't build an economy based on real estate. I mean, it's just not going to happen. We've seen what's happened over the last, you know, 7-8 years as a result of this recession, that if you rely totally on transactional real estate, it's not sustainable. It's not. I mean, it's just not. We can't build subdivisions for people that don't exist, and that's what we've done. And so I'm excited about what you're doing at the commission. I think, you know, raising the level of this discussion, engaging the tech sector is a part of this. And when I say the tech sector, it's not just biotech, which we have focused on almost exclusively over the last 10 years. And rightfully so, because of the large institutions, whether it's Moffitt or whether it's USF, whether it's M2 Gen, the med school. There's a lot of opportunities there to take advantage of that federal research that flows through USF. But there is another sector that is rising to the forefront, represented largely by some of the people that are here today, that is critically important. And, you know, we've got to celebrate that. We've got to encourage it. We've got to grow it. We've got to use our pulpit, Commissioner, to talk about it. And this is a great way to do it. So, you know, that was a long way of saying thanks for allowing me to be here.
Oh, well, wouldn't have expected anything less. Thank you very much, Mr.
It's okay. What he forgets sometimes is I can turn the water off at his house. So the next time you work, don't worry about water pressure. You just worry about having water.
I love the mayor. We're sitting here at the Octave Exchange, and normally we meet at Buddy Brew, which is right down the street on Kennedy and Albany. It's a great place. Lots of folks come here. But the mayor, we wanted to talk and celebrate a new facility, the Octave Exchange, which is really exciting. And people come into this building, which is right across the street from the University of Tampa, beautiful University of Tampa, which has got a great entrepreneurship program. And we're going to be talking with Rebecca White later about some of the things that she's doing. But it's amazing when you build something like this, people will come. Last night, Mr. Mayor, I was in Seminole Heights at Ellis on Nebraska Avenue, and in an area where, a lot of folks in the past have said, well, maybe I wouldn't want to go. Took my wife, had a fabulous time in a restaurant that it's an eclectic, it's Ella's, it's an art.
American folk art
American
or something.
folk art cafe.
Yeah.
It was packed. Yeah. And the folks that started it, they had gone to Kansas City and decided they wanted to come here to Tampa. They're in a band, but also to start a restaurant. So you got a lot of people coming into our community who are really excited about kind of adding some energy. And what I learned when I started meeting guys like, Ken Evans from Startup Monkey, Joel Lopez at an event who was really loud about, what's going on here in Tampa Bay, is that we got some really cool people here that are ready to help you, Mr. Mayor, drive the economy. So why don't we just kind of go around the table. I'm going to start. I got Joel and Ken are here, and we'll give them an opportunity to ask some questions later. But let me start here at the table to my far right. If you just introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of go around to the left.
Sure. I'm Marvin Scaff. I've been in Tampa over 20 years. My background is technology and entrepreneurship. In 2011, I was one of the investors and co-founders of Gazelle Lab, and have been really supportive of the Startup Weekend and startup community here. So I'm glad that you got this organized to have this conversation this morning.
Cool. Thank you. Fritz.
Fritz Eichelberger. For the last 8 years, I've owned a recruiting firm focused on healthcare and technology type positions. And for the last 14 years, I've been hosting the Pure and Shameless Tech Socials, where I've gotten anywhere from 100 to as many as 500 regional IT, interactive marketing, healthcare IT type professionals to show up. And kind of give people an idea that they're not alone, that it is a pretty large community.
Cool, thank you. Joy.
I'm Joy Randalls, and I'm a kind of serial and parallel entrepreneur. I moved here from Atlanta in 2000 because I wanted to live here, and I've built and sold 7 technology companies. I have 5 currently now that I'm either the founder or co-founder of, and I work actively in the community, angel investor.
Darren.
Hi, I'm Darren McDaniel, and I am the founding director of Urban Rethink in Orlando. It's a creative community hub. I'm a Tampa native, and after I got out of college, I moved back to Tampa, 91 to 93, and then took refuge in graduate school for a while. So I've been in Orlando now for 12 years.
Thank you for being here, Darren.
My pleasure.
Ken, I want Ken to introduce himself as well with Startup Monkey. Ken, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Ken Evans. I'm known as Startup Monkey, which is just a blog that I write about local tech, and over the years it's kind of evolved to being about economic development as well. And I would consider myself just more of a advocate of the tech ecosystem and/or disruptor of the way things are right today. I come from a number of different tech cities. I've worked in tech for about 30 years. And when Mark and I first met, it was at the Kauffman Global Entrepreneurship Week back in 2008 that we hosted. And the message has changed significantly, and the discussion has changed significantly. And I thank you for that, for making this more of a public forum and bringing it to the forefront of discussions of how we're changing things in Tampa Bay.
Well, my direction wasn't by intent. I mean, if you've looked at, my focus when I started in 2004 was the life sciences. We were really talking about what we can do to attract research institutes like Scripps, Torrey Pines, Burnham. And so, we were out there, myself and members of the chamber and others, looking for ways to bring, what we traditionally do, whether it's another company or another research institute, to Tampa Bay. In the midst of that, there was a conversation about Moffitt and Merck and the collaborative that they wanted to put together. The county invested $28 million in what was ultimately M2 General, McKinley, right across the street from the University of South Florida. Phenomenal, great opportunity. It's going to take a lot of time, and when you're getting into genetic research and trying to understand the human DNA and how we're going to treat diseases, it's going to take a while, but there's great opportunity there. But in the midst of that conversation, what I was missing was what was happening right here, and so that's when I met the Joels and the Kens and others, and they're saying you're focusing on trying to bring other companies over. You know, the Kauffman Foundation had a great study in which they said net new jobs are not being created by old companies, it's startups. So, you know, I go to the county and say, all right, guys, we're messing up. I mean, not that we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, but we need to be focusing on the startups. And like, wait a minute, you're telling us we need to go to the life sciences. And now, you know, we're kind of shifting our focus, not that we're moving away from life sciences, but we want to target startups. So Joy, can you ask, I mean, what I'm trying to understand is, what is it that local government, the mayor, can do to help generate a really healthy startup environment in Tampa?
Well, I think you're doing a lot of things already. So I think the Envision Tampa program is really huge. If you think about how most people who work in startups, they want to be in an area where they can live and work in the same area. It's just part of the culture that exists there. So I think saying that, hey, Tampa is open to this, we want this is what we want to do, and making that a publicly, you know, a declarative statement in public, that's a big step, you know, to go out and say we want that. I think things like putting additional infrastructure in play. I don't know if anybody's aware, anybody see the article of the company up in Tennessee that just put fiber, a huge fiber run through their environment, and now startups are flocking to the area because they've created a big hub in the old downtown, right? Which is, you know, not the greatest place up there. But now they've got old buildings like the building that we're in sitting here that they've turned into huge startup hubs, and people are coming because the infrastructure is there to support it. And it's creating, you know, hundreds of jobs on an annual basis, and they expect it to create somewhere in the number of like 10,000 jobs over like the next 5 years, which is, you know, kind of enormous from that perspective. I think the other thing is don't think they're mutually exclusive, right? Like things like biotech and high tech, yes, they're different, but they're not mutually exclusive. And I think Fritz can actually talk about that. A lot of people kind of cross over. IT, right, and the people who do that and the creative people, not necessarily a researcher or those types of things, but a lot of those things kind of cross-pollinate. And great companies come out of that synergy and having that open environment. So, I mean, I think we're making great strides in the right direction today.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, you know, when we talk about, you know, trying to attract people to our downtown, you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing? I mean, I know we got the Wave now downtown at the beer can building, but I mean,
yeah, part of it is what Joy was talking about is sort of, first of all, at the macro level, creating an environment where these young entrepreneurs want to be, where they want to live, work, and play, where they can, you know, write code all night and skateboard all day, as long as they stay off the marble, because they're tearing up the marble. Oh yeah. And part of that is, you know, having a city that's diverse.
Absolutely.
Because for many of these young people, they are colorblind, they are gender blind, they are orientation blind. They couldn't care less, and that is such a positive step for this country to be moving in that direction. You got to have a city where it's literally open 18 hours a day, you know, because, you know, entrepreneurs and that creative class operates on different schedules than certainly you and I did growing up. I mean, we weren't, you know, we were wedded to sort of the old model. It's got to be fluid, you know, it's got to be someplace that can adapt. There's got to be entertainment, there's got to be nightlife, there's got to be restaurants, there's got to be transit. They want to walk downstairs and walk to their work, to their employment, you know, come home at night, take their laptop and go sit in Curtis Sixon Park and work. They want to walk on the Riverwalk. They want to have 7 choices to go to dinner, all of which they can walk to. So there's the physical environment that's important. And we, as you can see, are reshaping and restitching the physical environment in downtown Tampa to make it a destination for those types of young people. I mean, the fact that we've announced 3 residential towers in the last month tells you that it's working, because those young folks who can afford to pay $2 a foot rent, who don't want to buy houses but want to live in the urban core, that the demand is far outstripping the supply. The other part is exactly right, is creating an environment where the clusters emerge so that folks, if a startup fails, they can walk across the street and there's another company or another opportunity that is presented to them. So that's how you create, you know, the clusters of talent and labor that attract smart people and also attract companies. So, yeah, we're headed down the right course. It's very much of an urban-driven formula. I mean, it's not a suburban model. Cities are undergoing a renaissance all over the country as young people flock to the cities, as empty nesters come in. And so we got to just continue to drive this discussion and continue to make the right moves to make sure that our downtown and urban core continues to thrive and grow and expand. And, you know, I think we're this far away from a grocery store downtown, and as silly as that sounds, that is
That's a
very,
big deal.
very important for creating that environment downtown that makes sense.
I would argue not just for startups, but really for, I mean, there's so many existing companies. Mark, you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I rattled off all sorts of companies. TradeX bought for $6 billion, Intermedia for billions, and Pilgrim for however many millions. Right. You know, there's so many companies out here no one talks about, and you ask me, well, how come no one knows about it? Well, they're not, there isn't a voice for them. They're not like the real estate attorneys, they're not like the doctors, they're not like the others where there's a political action committee, or, you know, they're donating lots of money to whatever the politicians, so they get the attention. So the startups will benefit, the existing companies will benefit because they want talent. Talent has to have a reason to come here. Great place to live, restaurants. I remember when I moved here in '97, Sunday night, you either went to Burns or the Village Inn. I mean, there was like no choice. You know, Seminole Heights is an area you would not drive through. I would not drive my mother through 15 years ago. Today, I'd proudly take her to a refinery, Independent and others. And these types of high energy folks that want to build companies that are making pretty good money or working in a technology role at these firms, they want those types of choices. And Joy, honestly, there's a point that you brought up about the in Tennessee, and I think in Kansas also did a deal with
Kansas
Google,
City, yes.
where they're just fiber connecting the entire location. You know, I would encourage the folks in Enterprise, Florida, to shift from promoting an orange tie as an I, to really promoting the concept of let's start with the major urban areas, fiber it. It is amazing what it will do to encourage companies to come in when all of a sudden, or even the consumers in the area, they can download a movie in 2 or 3 seconds as opposed to what it is now. I can get that much more work done. That's a selling point. You know, so I would encourage these folks to think strategically. I think what we're seeing local is strategic. We just need to keep building and getting that message across to others. So.
Well, it concerns me when we were talking about, you know, where do you want to go when you graduate? When I would go out and talk to high school students and college students about where they wanted to go when they left school, they all talked about another cool city. You know, when you'd look at Forbes and they'd have your list of the most, you know, the top 10 places where young people would want to go, we'd make the top 10 list, but it was always the top 10 for the least desirable. And it was all kind of a mental attitude. And what I like about what you're doing, Mayor, is you're shaking that up. I mean, you're talking to, you know, a young generation. Darren, you left. You went to Orlando. Why did you leave? And what can we do, or what can we replicate from what's happening in Orlando, or what are we doing now? And you can get the mayor right here that can, you know, help, you know, make Tampa thrive.
Well, when I got out of college in '91, the economy wasn't so great, and I was in film and video production and doing all kinds of creative enterprises back then. And so after a couple of years of unemployment and underemployment and everything under the sun, I went to graduate school, went into ultimately a PhD program in sociology, and studied freelance workers and tried to find out, you know, how are they able to keep going despite the odds against them psychologically, and also what factors come into play in that environment. And so I looked at structural factors, and structural factors in the workplace. In traditional jobs, you have organization, integration, and validation with people. And what I found was that's a lot of what I lacked when I was here. And it would have been anywhere, really, frankly, in the early '90s. That type of thing wasn't happening yet. And so there weren't like clubs or things that I could feel like I was a joiner here. And I came out of college just ready to conquer the world and do great things, and I left really feeling kind of defeated at the time. And so I learned enough there that I was able to fortify my own strategies for moving forward. And I came back to Florida in 2001, made a feature film. Then later I was going to go back to school and finish my PhD, and I got an idea for a social networking startup. And so then I got it going in that for a while. And in the meantime, I had this idea for this kind of creative community hub that brought what I call it an opportunity structure. And it's a flexible framework for connective engagement. And the key that part is being connected and engaged and plugged into the community. And so really what Urban Rethink strives to do is to be some kind of a combination of like a settlement house and just a beacon for people to come and plug into the community and figure out how that they can collaborate with other people that they meet there and create ideas that then go up to the next level there. So,
is Orlando plugged in? Are you all connected there?
We're sure working at it. I mean, it's a struggle, and we're a nonprofit, and we are in both senses of the term. So it's not very easy, but we are creating a magnet. And so, to give an example, I met a woman who had just moved from India, and told her about Urban Rethink. About a month later, we were having a show and tell, like open mic type thing, sharing night, and she was singing "Leaving on a Jet Plane," to this community. And I contrast that with what I experienced, coming out of school. The fact that she could come to a new area and feel plugged in, and doing all these different things that are already feeling part of, hey, I belong here. I mean, that was a great victory for me and for the space. And so that's what I look to do. And when we think about people that come up in this, I mean, my grandparents lived in Tampa. When I got out of college, or before I got out of college, I test drove LA for a summer, and then the next summer I came here and I worked in freelance, and that was enough to say, okay, I'm going to come back to my roots. I'm going to move to Tampa when I got out of school, and I didn't. I left. I mean, I was here, but I had to leave. And so there's some real opportunity with how we bring these homegrown entities, as you all were speaking, up and let them thrive, rather than try to pull people from out of state or out of the area and give all the funds to them and make it happen. If we can generate energy from within, I think that's where we're going to prosper.
Well, that's what Joel and Ken and everyone else has been telling us. Don't give the other guys the money, give us the money. And
no.
But part of what they've been saying, Mr. Mayor, is that
don't give that money.
Yeah, don't give Joel the money. But when I met with the bar camp guys and the code camp guys, and I participated in your forum over there at USF, which is an amazing place. You had me read Brad Feld's book, Startup Community, and the whole idea was what Darren's talking about. We got to do a better job of taking what we got here and connecting, not just throwing money at it, but connecting people. And that's what we're trying to do, Mr. Mayor. We're trying to. I mean, what we're finding is that through Sprout Camp and Gazelle Labs, that there's all these. There are a lot of things happening. But what I saw when you introduced me to the folks was that they were so busy. They weren't the ones going to the chamber meetings. They weren't the ones you'd see at the downtown clubs. They were like, and they looked at me and they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm from the county." And they're like,
"I'm here to help."
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. I'm here to help. They knew you, Mr. Mayor. They know the mayor. They know, but they were like, "What do you do?" And they pay you. I'm trying to stay busy. But I mean, I'm at this forum, and there's Joy looking at me, and they're asking me about, what the county's trying to do to help businesses, and I can see Joy kind of shaking her head like this way. I'm going, oh God. I knew when she would nod her head up and down, maybe I was in the right direction, but that's why I wanted to meet Joy and talk to you all and say, okay, what is it that we can do here locally to help this thriving community? Because Fritz is saying there's a lot of people here already. We've got a lot of successful companies. We've got a lot of talent.
When I started the Tech Socials 14 years ago, what I was doing, it was the .com era, so I'm meeting all these startups around town, and then also meeting all these technology companies around the area. The Certiges, the First Advantage, Higher Checks, and I mean, I can on and on and on. I can go over lots of these organizations. And it was interesting, even at that level, not even at the government level, but just at the actual tech worker level, they had no clue of all these other companies. They had no clue of all. So I would meet, hey, did you know about this one? And Home Shopping Network is there. Did you know they have 200 IT people? Certiges, they have 2,000 IT people. Nielsen, et cetera. They kind of heard, never knew. And so I just, on a whim, I said, hey, let's put 13 people together. They're all in the IT community. They're all trying to build their awareness and make contacts. And that was successful. I said, great, let's invite one or two people and on and on and on. And literally it grew into hundreds of folks that show up on a regular basis. The database is well over 20,000 regional IT professionals, from college grads on up to people that are CIOs of $20 billion+ companies. and they'll show up. They'll gladly show up, talk, help each other out. I've been doing it at the Blue Martini for the convenience of large enough location. People from Sarasota, all over the area can drive to it. And it's an open forum. People just go, show, and every time you hear from lots of folks, I had no clue. I'm in my world, I'm in my little smokestack. I had no clue this was going on. I met these startups, I met this company, I met that person who had invested in whatever. When I introduce you to Marvin, like, hey Marvin, so what do you do? Marvin created software companies. Marvin, is involved in founding this and all sorts of, actually, and we created Groupon before it was even Groupon, wasn't it? Remember Abima? Right. So those types of cutting edge type organizations, and here he is, and you could pick his brain off of what we should be doing, what other communities are doing, what are other startups looking for, and here he is as a good resource. But 10 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago, you had no idea he even existed. So it's really, I go back to the point. How come I didn't know? Well, it's about that message, getting the message out there. These are the success stories. Here's what's going on. This is a great community. Come here. You start a company. If it fails, fine. There'll be other opportunities. And if it's successful, you can pull from a lot of talent to help drive that success.
Why aren't you in San Francisco?
Family.
You want to chase them out?
No. I'm saying we want you here, but I'm saying why aren't you in San Francisco?
I have been twice, but I kept my house in Florida. I lived out there in '94. I lived out there in 2001. Had an apartment in Burlingame once and a house in Los Gatos, but I have family here, and I think Tampa's a great place to live, and it's a great airport. It'd be nice if there were a direct flight to San Francisco, but
they're working on that.
Yeah, we are.
Get Virgin Air.
Yeah, but Marvin's right. Like for me, I've worked for companies in the Valley. I've worked, I've worked in New York. I've worked in Boston. I've worked in Austin. I live here because I want to live here, and I really believe. If we look at what resources we have, so we have lots of young people, like when we were at USF, right, last week, and you look at the diversity of the people who are there and young people who want to be entrepreneurs, who want to stay here, right? We talked to 2 people who are in college who already started their own company, right? That's pretty good, right? So you got a guy who's a junior and another person, who's a sophomore, and they've already started their own business while they're in school. You've got a lot of IT workers, to Fritz's point. So you've got all these people who kind of are the next stage up from that. And then on the other side, you've got people like me, and you've got people like Kurt Long and Rob Campbell and guys like that, right, who have, done 4 or 5 more companies, and they don't, like, guys like Rob Campbell, right, he doesn't necessarily want to be running a company all day long every day, but we've got great people with great Rolodexes who are retirees, who are here, who make terrific board members and advisors and can open the doors for all these startups. It's that, all those different players in that group that make it really successful. And we're very fortunate because honestly, if you go look in the Valley or in Boston, they don't have as much of that, right? They don't have that other group. Those guys actually come here in the end. So we actually have some other advantages I think they don't. We also have a lot of money. It just kind of flies under the radar, right? So there's a lot of angels and things like that. And if we begin to grow these companies from the grassroots up, that's what actually attracts venture capitalists. It's not a lack of VC money, it's a lack of deal flow. If there's deal flow, VCs come.
It's interesting. Let's get back to the original proposition. Just like we don't want to choose between biotech and, say, IT, we also don't want to be put in a position of putting all of our eggs in one basket. There is hunting, and then there's growing. Hunting is when we go to New York City and try to attract back office operations from J.P. Morgan Chase or Citigroup or, Depository Trust. And we'll continue to do that. The days of us getting a 10,000 person relocation are few and far between, and you end up usually having to give it away your firstborn to do it. And so the economic investment, while amortized over 30 or 40 years, probably makes sense. It's an expensive proposition, and they don't come along too often. And some of those jobs, candidly, we don't want to compete for. Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina will give away their firstborn in order to attract a BMW plant or a Mercedes plant. But that's an important component of our economic development efforts, and we need to continue to do that. The other part of the equation, which is where I think this group is focused on, is growing indigenous businesses. because the vast majority of the job growth will come from small businesses adding 1, 2, 3, 4 employees at a time, but cumulatively add up to significantly more numbers than the 1,000 that will pull from Time Warner or J.P. Morgan Chase. And we've got to be cognizant of that. And we are better at the hunting and more organized at the hunting and more focused on the hunting because that's the traditional way of doing things. What we're learning now is how to be better growers and focusing attention on those small companies who, like you said, Mark, don't participate in the traditional venues by which they get exposed to, chamber leaders or business leaders or rich folks.
And that's going to take time.
It does. Yeah. It does. But, forums like this and Tampa Bay Technology Forum and the exposure that WAVE is getting and, Gazelle Labs, which got some great exposure, have gotten investors to start thinking outside the box. Most of the investors in Florida are traditional investors who look at real estate because they want to touch it, they want to feel it, they want to walk on it, they want to be able to buy it and sell it, and that's all they know. I mean, that's where most wealthy people in Florida have made significant sums of money. So training that next generation of investors is important. I mean, really important, and the more exposure we get for this sector of the economy, the more they're going to be inclined to say, put their foot in the water and invest in some of the startups.
No, not just tech. I think we started the conversation early on talking about healthcare too. You look at all the different hospitals that have been acquired. You look at the researchers that are getting all the grants, like at USF. All those doctors that are spinning off technologies that literally impacting lives. Well, those are opportunities. There are jobs created. Look at Camels and the impact that's having in this community. It's an amazing thing to see how it was in '97, 2001, even 2004, to see where it is now. The vast and broad number of firms in a cross number of different industries. They're hiring. Exciting, really cool things, great leaders, paying well, giving incentives. As a recruiter, I deal with folks in Chicago, Boston, New York. I actively market to them. I send them pictures of the Bay, 70 degrees, 80-degree temperature. I send market updates like that.
The mayor in his green pants.
Yeah, the mayor, not yet. Next
Okay.
week. It was funny. On LinkedIn, I'm a member of various job sites for different cities, Chicago and others, cold weather. And during these warm months, I end up posting, hey, look at these jobs, 70, 80-degree temperature, come down here. And someone said, well, that's pretty, awful of you to market all these, great jobs, paying what we're making in high-priced Chicago, and it's 70, 80 degrees there while it's 20 degrees here and snowing. Well, come on down.
There's one thing I'm convinced that we need to do better. And if you look at successful cities around the country, particularly emerging technology communities, one of the common factors that they have is a research university in their midst. Whether it's Silicon Valley and Stanford, or whether it's, Raleigh-Durham with, UNC and Duke, Austin with UT. I mean, we have that same capacity here with USF. And there's upwards of $400 million in research that flows through USF. The challenge that we have is to find a way to move it from the petri dish to the marketplace. And that commercialization process has got to be as expeditious and as streamlined as you possibly can. There was a guy at the Business of Biotech that Moffitt did a couple weeks ago. There was a VC. He used to be the CEO of Merck, I think. He now runs a venture capital fund called Hatteras Capital. He was saying in North Carolina, because it's a more mature VC environment, the commercialization agreement is literally a one-page agreement where the university takes, and I'll pick a number, it's not going to be accurate, 1% of the profits, and gets this stuff out the door and out into the marketplace where you start to create companies and jobs. Because ours is less mature, I think the needs and the demands of the university are a little bit bigger than perhaps what they would be 10 years from now, and a little more complicated to get that research out there. And that's, one-page agreement, 1%, bing, out the door, start a company. And we need to get to that point because
I think you're talking about educating, like experiential entrepreneurial education. I can give you an example. I just met a doctor a couple of days ago. She was a radiologist, PhD. She needs help scratching the entrepreneurial itch. She quit her day job. She wants to start up a business where she's developed technology for determining early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, and can help slow that down. She has no idea how to develop a business model. She has no idea how to raise capital. She doesn't, she's got the domain knowledge from the academic and the scientific background. So, I'm trying to help her with, that part of the process. Starting on April 10th, I'm going to be running the Startup Weekend Next program here in Tampa, which is a 5-week-long program to help educate, entrepreneurial, just what it takes to start a company. So, I think those are the things that, you kind of have to happen here. But, to your point, everybody talks about Brad Feld's books and things, but, Brad's written a lot about the entrepreneurial density, about, Palo Alto's Palo Alto, because you can go on University Avenue, grab a coffee, go to work, go down the street, meet with the VC. It's all within walking distance. The same thing with Boulder. It's cool to see the things that are happening in downtown Tampa. It's just early.
Are there other things that you've seen in these other communities that could be put into action here over some time?
I think Florida should do a better job of selling the no state income tax. When Jim Clark took Netscape public, he moved to Florida. He moved to South Florida and established, tax status here. The golfers, Tiger Woods lives in Florida, so he doesn't have to pay California income tax. And there's a lot of really successful entrepreneurs that have had an exit that moved to Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Boca Raton. Let's get them up here.
Florida's a great state for doing business tax purposes as well. For starting a business. I don't think a lot of people really, understand that. And, to your point, Mayor, when you're talking about research institutes, MIT is probably the greatest example in the world. MIT, if you look at the companies that have come out of MIT in the last 30 years that are still in existence today, very clear, like not a startup that failed, but they're still in existence today, creates the 7th largest economy in the world. Just the businesses that have come out of there. And one of the things I think we could do here too is, they have a great research institute at MIT, and then they have the Sloan Business School, but many of the companies that come out of there end up with a student who came out of Harvard on the business side, technology that came out of the TLO at MIT, right? And a couple of engineers here. So the fact that we have like University of Tampa and we have USF, we've got Ringling down south of the city, so you've got a lot of creatives from that perspective. There is a lot within the counties that make up Tampa Bay that could make a huge startup community. And I think a lot of it's somebody taking the first step forward, right, in creating that. And to Marvin's point about walking from point to point, it is a big deal that you can do that. The same's true in Cambridge, right? It's like I can go, walk down the street or get on the T and go 2 stops down. I can meet with 10 VCs. I can turn around and come back and be at MIT or at Harvard, in 10 minutes. And that's a pretty big deal. The majority of the people, it's kind of shifted back to that urban density, both like in Sunnyvale, right, and San Jose, sure, and it has in Cambridge and Boston, where it got spread out for a little while. Now it's being much more condensed. And I think we have an opportunity now to say, oh, we get where it's going, so let's go that way versus the spread out part. Let's start to create a hub inside of the city, right, to move that forward.
The mayor and I, when we would have coffee before he was the mayor, we would talk, though, about what we're going to do and how we're going to work together. It seems that it's the collaboration which is so essential. And your commitment before you took office was that you were going to work with the county, you were going to work with everyone, bringing people together to enhance collaboration. And when I look at other communities and what they're doing right and wrong and what we're doing right and wrong, I've noticed that sometimes we've held back because we tend to, we have in our history, I was born and raised here, but the history of our community oftentimes has been we operate in kind of isolated little islands. Right. When I came to the county, our objective was not to really necessarily work with the city, it was to gig the city. And that attitude has changed, and I credit you. When you came, one of the first things you did was came to the county center and spoke to the commissioners. But it's not just government talking, it's all these different entities and groups talking and saying that we're here, we're going to work together, and that we've got an incredible community. Fritz, you talk about the beautiful weather, the opportunity to finally now you can ride a bike. The mayor, you've been putting together a bike program in our community where you can ride a bike safely. When you go to Seattle, everyone loves to ride. When you come to Tampa Bay, it's like you're riding a bike. Are you crazy? Well, now, the attitude changing. Are you going to ride tomorrow? I know there's a big race.
No, I'm drinking beer. You don't want a drunken Irishman on a bike, do you?
That's how you can drink more beer.
Yeah, those bikes go a little faster than my wife would prefer that I go. Mike, don't write the part about the drunken Irishman.
No,
all right?
he won't.
Yeah, that's fine. You can write that.
I'll join you. Cigar. Hey, but we got Cigar City sitting here. The fourth. Yeah. It's one of the best craft breweries in the world, and they're right here in Tampa Bay. Yeah. And what's so cool is that Tampa Bay really is stepping up. And we got a lot of young talent, and they're excited to come and talk to us. Last week we had I was at USF, and you know what? When I asked them, why are you here? One young man was from Vietnam. Yeah. The young lady that was from New York who came here. But they were saying it's because this is a diverse community where you can instantly meet people. Everyone's friendly, and that's a great thing to hear. That, you know, that diversity is important, and that we welcome you no matter who you are. And that's what the mayor has done. The mayor has really, you know, he welcomes me. And at times, you know, I walk in, I'm like, oh God, here's Sharpe from the county. But you know, but seriously, but you treat me, you know, with respect. We work together well, and I think what you're going to find is that we're here to kind of help this community grow and thrive. I'll give you the last word, Mayor.
Oh, you know, it's interesting, Mark, because if you look at the technology community, what you said earlier was right. I mean, they don't care who's a Democrat or who's Republican. They don't care who's city, who's county. They don't understand sort of traditional government. You know, they may know me just because, you know, I'm the mayor, but they really don't know necessarily what I do, what you do. And so the more barriers that we can knock down, you know, those bridges are just artificial boundaries on a map, whether it's from here to Pinellas, you know, city, county. I mean, we're going to succeed or fail depending on that relationship. We're going to succeed together. We're going to fail alone. And for the tech sector who gets frustrated with government at the slow pace of government and doesn't understand how government affects their life and how government can be helpful to them, it's our obligation to create an environment where, you know, there's a common vision, there's a plan, we execute it, we're in it together, we don't care whether it's city or county, and we just keep moving forward. And when we do that, and there's, you know, not the bickering and the infighting that's taken place over the decades, then we will be successful. Because ultimately, if you're successful, I'm successful. And if Pinellas gets a corporate relocation, half of the executives are living in South Tampa. Yep. I mean, so we are inextricably tied together, and our success is dependent upon those personal relationships. And so for me, I mean, I'm at a point in my career, I don't care who gets the credit. You know, I really don't. I mean, it's not that big a deal. And I would rather prop you up and prop the county up if it means we get something done. You know.
Well, that's what's happening here in Tampa Bay, and this is just, you know, Leslie, I promise you, sitting politely and quietly at the table. This table, there are no barriers to entry at this table. We meet routinely at Buddy Brew. I know next week we will not be there. The 29th we're at USF Connect. USF Connect, 9 o'clock. USF Connect, 9 o'clock. We're going to be meeting with I know we're going to be at UT not too long from now. We're going to be taking a tour of Tampa Bay Wave. But we'll be back every Friday, usually at 9, and you're invited. And that's everybody listening. We want you at the table, working with all the others that are here. What's that?
Have the hashtag.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. EDI2. Hashtag, for those of you following us on Twitter, hashtag EDI2. You can kind of get your updates, see what's going on. This community is only going to get better. And Marvin and guys, we want you and others like you here starting businesses and making this community a great place to live and work. And as the mayor says, you know, when his kids, you know, get older, my kids get older, they're going to want to stay in Tampa Bay. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for being here.
Thank you, Mark.
It was a lot of fun. You're always welcome. We'll buy you a cup of coffee anytime you want a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And
gotta love Buddy Brew coffee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thanks,
Yes,
Mark.
All right.
Yeah.